All right, week 15, day 2. In day 1 of this, we got to learn a little bit about the needs of this community of Ryoishi. In our midweek check in, we got to see the way that these different technologies worked. And today, we're going to try and define which ones are going to be best for Ryoishi in particular, knowing that they're a fishing village, knowing that because it's so small, they probably don't have a ton of money to spend on this, knowing that they need to be able to have that access to water so they can continue to get in and out of the water, but perhaps it doesn't need to be very pretty just because you're not a tourist town. But we saw all these different technologies that stop waves or slow down waves. The natural beach versus a seawall, which is a tall wall there that can hopefully stop, maybe not. In the video we saw yesterday, it was kind of effective, but not super effective. A levee or a sea dike, a breakwater, which is out in the middle of the water, a recurved wall, which kind of slingshots it back, rock armor, which as it comes through, it will bounce off and ricochet and reflect backwards. Tetrapods were not in our video yesterday, but we're going to read a little bit about them today. Very similar to rock armor, and in fact, pretty effective, but made of cement instead of rock. A mangrove forest, also really effective in yesterday's video, though it's going to take a long time to grow because you're growing a forest. And a pine forest if we're on a different area that has pine trees growing. We're going to look at those each in these little task cards that are going to show you a little bit about how well each of these categories score in different criteria. So one potential criteria is that criteria about its ability to block the waves. Obviously, that's a really important one. 4 out of 5 is a pretty good score. 5 out of 5 would be even better, right? And there are some additional notes off on the side here that will tell you a little bit more information. You know, it's effective at breaking the wave. However, it can trap the water being reflected from the shore, which increases the level of water near the shore as well. So pretty good, but not perfect. The impact on boats and ocean traffic, again, a high score, that's going to be a good thing. A low score is going to be a bad thing. So impact on boats and ocean, a 4 out of 5 means, hey, it's pretty good. Only boats needing deeper water are affected. Normal, private boats are going to be totally okay. The impact on marine life is relatively significant. That is going to have a pretty significant impact. A 2 out of 5 is a low score. Impact on ocean view, very negligible. A high score means this is a good thing. If it's a submerged breakwater, which is hiding underneath the water, it's not going to affect the view. This is the only one that's really confusing. The cost is a 1 out of 5. Again, low score means bad. So that means it's actually very expensive in this case. A low score means, we don't really desire that. So we can look at these different task cards and kind of compare them side by side in different categories, looking for which score is higher or lower. Again, that higher score telling us that this is a better situation for anybody. But we have to make a decision for Ryoishi in particular. So let's take a look at the reading. In class, the students were asked to read one section, either walls or breakwaters or natural vegetation. And within each of these, there are a couple of the task cards. So we can see a pine forest and a mangrove forest. We can see a submerged breakwater versus rock armor versus the tetrapods. And again, some pictures of those are visible on the page, as well as in the slides, which I have attached. We can look at those different categories. And then in the wall itself, we have a seawall or a dike or a recurved wall. All of these are different options for what we could recommend. Now, this reading, super brief, again, just read one of the sections or read all of them. The biggest emphasis in today's activity is actually trying to sort out these cards, to know what it is that is important for Ryoishi and to make sure that we are providing them with as best of a recommendation as we can. Now, some important considerations might be listed in the sides here. Ryoishi is right on the water, so obviously we need to consider the potential that it's going to have a lot of waves happening, a lot of action going on there. In this reading we saw the other day, they haven't had a really dramatic one for 80 years, but this one really just destroyed everything close to the water. It seems like that mangrove forest was pretty good. It does an okay job. It's pretty cheap. Let's make a draw on here. It does a decent job, 3 out of 5. Um, it doesn't really have any negative impact on marine life or on boats, so that's really positive for them. Cost is good. It takes a long time to build, so if they need it right away, that might be an issue. But here's where we might need to read further. Apparently, mangrove trees only grow in the southernmost part of Japan. Well, where is Ryoishi? Hmm. Looks like Ryoishi is actually quite far to the north. Now, I don't know exactly where that line of mangrove trees is, but it says only in the southernmost part. So maybe Ryoishi actually wouldn't be able to grow these mangrove trees at all just because of the ecology there. So that's also going to be an important thing to consider. So what I want you to do, in addition to reading these as an at-home person who didn't get a take part in class, read through these, get to learn a little bit about each of them. Um, Again, I have some videos posted for that. If you are looking in Google Classroom, you can just watch me doing reading 1, 2, and 3 for you, or you can read it for yourself. But then spend a little bit of time looking at each of these. If you want, print them out and cut them up. That really helps to be able to shuffle them around and rearrange these on different categories, which is going to be best for its wave blocking, which is going to be best for its uh, boat, for its maintenance, for the time to build. And then you can go ahead and look on the final attachment, which is this sorting activity. In this one, you can actually go and sort them based for Ryoishi in particular. Which ones do you think are the most effective for them? Um, and in this dragging process, which doesn't want to work on my computer right now, um, you should be able to drag them around and actually should be able to drag them around and actually move them back and forth to try and rearrange them in whatever way you think is going to be best. Ultimately, when all is said and done, though, uh, of course, feel free to look at some of the ones that your classmates arranged as well. We ran out of time. We didn't totally finish it, but some groups got quite a few on there. Um, Ultimately, I want you not to tell me which is the worst, not to tell me the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but to tell me which one do you think is the absolute number one recommendation for Ryoishi. A lot of students are thinking that recurved wall, even though it's relatively expensive. So, whichever one you decide to choose, give me some good detail, some good justification to explain why you think this one is what you would recommend. Again, when I'm talking about those criteria and constraints, we're looking at these cards. Well, the recurved wall scored a 5 out of 5 on its ability to break waves. I think that's really important because in Ryoishi, they had such huge waves that we really want something that's strong, is going to hold up against the defenses. Talk about the impact on marine life, the impact on boats. Maybe we can even assess and say, hey, the cost is pretty high. 2 out of 5 means it's relatively expensive, but we think it's worth it for Ryoishi because. Go ahead and give me some thoughts on that as well, okay? When all is said and done with that, then you are good. You can get this submitted and you are good to go on your assignment for week 15, day 2. Again, plenty of links in the description as well as attached here so you can see the slides and you can see all that good stuff that we want to do to make sense of which is going to be the best for our particular client that we are looking at. Thank you so much for your energies. Thank you so much for your efforts. Always reach out if you have any thoughts or questions.